Hello and welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. I am going to talk to you today about self sabotage. And the thing that you need to know about self sabotage is that most everybody is doing it without even realizing it. In fact, most self sabotage runs so deep that you will run and live your entire life without even realizing that you're sabotaging what is possible. People tell you to live up to your potential and all of this, but why are we not doing that? The reason is because we are unconsciously sabotaging our life. So now, if you're having trouble getting the business that you want, the career that you want, if it's just not feeling good, like maybe it looks good on paper, but it doesn't feel good, or maybe you're struggling to keep your health on point, to keep up with those healthy habits, or your relationship, maybe that's feeling not so great and it's not what you anticipated it's struggle and difficult and all of this. If that's the case, I'm here to tell you that you are subconsciously and unconsciously sabotaging yourself. And what do I mean by subconscious and unconscious? Subconscious is something that you're not really aware of. Oh shit, I'm doing this thing that you catch yourself and you're like, why did I say that thing? Why did I stick my foot in my mouth? I sabotaged myself. And that's subconscious. You didn't do it on purpose. You weren't trying to do it. But unconscious is the thing that actually sabotages people's lives. And it runs deeper than the subconscious. And to uncover it and clear it and stop sabotaging your life in an unconscious way requires something more. So there are things and patterns and things that are in your base level operating system that are about keeping you safe. And they are based on your experiences, particularly your experiences before you could talk. And they're based on major traumas that you've had. It's also based on the things that have been passed down through generations. And so there is this safety program that will trump everything. Doesn't matter how good and on point you are being, but if it goes against this original safety program that is in your brain, it's the original operating system, because at the deepest level, your body is designed to survive, straight up to survive. That is what every system in your body is about. And to have a life that is more than survival, more than safe, you have to undo some of this unconscious programming, this safety programming. And let me just put it this way: the generations before you have demonstrated what will keep you safe, and you picked it up. And without your awareness, you have chosen similar behaviors and similar limits. And yes, every generation actually does expand a little bit further most of the time, unless they come up against some other different obstacles. But for the most part, it's only a little bit better. So if your life is not as big, as grand, and beautiful as you want it to be, it doesn't feel like bliss, it doesn't feel like happiness most of the time, this episode is going to be for you, because there's stuff at play that's sabotaging you. Now, I have been the queen of unconscious sabotage. I've had lots of dreams, lots of things that I wanted to do, but I couldn't quite get there. And it wasn't until even recently that I understood the absolute depths that my unconscious would go to keep me safe. I grew up in not the safest environment. For those of you who've been following me, you know there was physical abuse, there was emotional abuse. The babysitter's kids used to tie me up and lock me in the closet, leave me overnight. I was sexually assaulted a couple of times as a child, 6 and 7 years old, and almost kidnapped 3 times. neglect, left in the crib at night while my mom went to work, by myself while I was a baby. So all these things, these big things. One of the things that a life like that did was lead me to experience a feeling of a lack of safety, a lack of food, a lack of nourishment, a lack of love. And those are things that we need. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there is at the bottom, there's your physical needs, your food, your water, your shelter, right? I had shelter. I didn't always have food. Then there is safety, right? Feeling physically safe. And then there's love and belonging. And so if you are missing any of those things, what you experience is a feeling of lack. And so love and belonging is important because historically we needed other people to survive. In this day and age, if you've got enough money, you could live as a hermit, as a shut-in. You could totally survive on your own. You're not technically surviving on your own, but you could pretty much shut out the world and survive. But historically, we couldn't do that. We needed other people. And socially, mentally, and emotionally, we still need other people. But to cover the basics, the safety, the food, the shelter, we could technically survive without others. And so without love and belonging, we feel a lack and this potential of being ostracized, being banished because if the tribe did not like you and you were put out on your own, the odds of your survival were slim to none. So love and belonging is obviously something that feels good and something our soul and our emotions crave, but it also boils down to safety. It boils down to needing other people in order to survive. So in order to get all my physical needs and to have safety, be safe from predators and whatnot, I need other people. So when I'm talking about safety, I'm going to be talking about love and belonging. I'm going to be talking about safety. I'm going to be talking about physical needs. Those are the things that when I speak about safety, I'm talking about all of those things. And so we are designed, our bodies are designed to notice a particular emotion. And it is the driving force of your unconscious mind. It is the emotion of lack. And so when you experience the emotion of lack, this is, I am missing something. I need to be something that I'm not. I'm hungry. I feel unsafe. I'm lacking safety. I'm lacking love. I'm lacking belonging. I'm lacking worthiness. I'm lacking deservingness. I'm lacking people to help me. When you experience the feeling of lack, meaning you are missing something, your body goes into survival mode. We are hardwired to move into survival instincts when we experience the feeling of lack. And we know everybody out there is talking about the feelings like, oh, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, and I'm not capable. So those feelings that people are dealing with every day, whenever you feel like you are missing something, I'm missing love, I'm missing whatever it might be. I'm missing people to listen to me. I'm missing having people see me and understand me. Whatever it feels like you are missing something or you lack something, you activate the feeling of lack. I spent my life in this place, right? I would feel the feeling of lack and I would respond. I would respond in a survival method of multiple survival methods in order to make the feeling of lack go away. If I was hungry, which I often was as a kid, I would go into survival mode. How do I get food? So the first thing I would do is I would ask my mom and say, Mom, I'm hungry. I would take it upon myself to do something to take care of my lack. But I was met with resistance when took a direct, straight path to take care of my lack. And what would happen for me in my life is my mom would say things like, "No, you're not hungry. It's just a figment of your imagination." And so what I learned was that taking a straight, direct path to take care of my lack was not going to actually take care of my lack. I learned that I had to figure out another way. So then I would go into these survival mode things because all of a sudden, the source of my food, which is my mom, has cut my food off. And now I'm really in lack because I don't know how I'm going to get food. I have to figure out a different way. So I figure out a different way. I figure out like how to maybe manipulate my mom into thinking she's hungry, because if she's hungry, then she'll feed me, because if she's getting food and I'm there, then I'll get fed too. Maybe I would figure out how to people please. Another thing that I did is I convinced myself and just believed her, okay, I wasn't hungry. So what I did was I squashed down the part of me, the aspect of me that was hungry. And as a result, that part would be squashed down. And then eventually it would come out of the closet like a rabid, hungry monster, and it would binge and eat all the things, because I subconsciously, as a result of how my mom was telling me that I was not hungry, I would choose to believe her, because this was one of my survival mechanisms. And I would choose to believe her. And then I would stuff down the part of me that was hungry, the part of me that wanted, the part of me that needed. And I would stuff it down. And eventually I would be so fucking hungry that it would come out like, and I would just binge eat like crazy. I would go to the store, I would steal a bunch of candy, because, of course, as a kid, you were going to grab the candy. You're not going to binge eat a bunch of apples. And I would eat. And I did this. There was always this this yo-yoing of about food. It was always, I have to control it. I have to maintain and be not eat. And it got exasperated later when my mom stuck me on the scale and was like, you have to control how much you eat. You cannot gain any weight. So there was this method of I have to stay slim and I can't gain any weight. So now there's more restrictions on how I can eat. And so we wonder why. I don't wonder, I know why my weight was always a struggle for me. And now I was never that heavy. And I also never got too skinny, because there was this fear of feeling judgment from other family members who I had overheard talking shit about skinny people. And so my little survival mind was like, okay, can't do that. If I'm skinny right now, I must gain weight. And I started gaining weight at that point. That was like the last year that I was skinny, was when I heard that. And then I got a little bit chubbier, not crazy, but there was this safety zone where my weight would be okay. And so I would stay in that safety zone, even though my body, as I've learned now, since I've unwound all this self-sabotaging stuff and the deeper unconscious sabotaging stuff, is that my body wanted to be a different weight. My body is happiest between 119 and 123-ish. And that's where my body feels happy, where I feel physically great. And numbers don't necessarily mean much, but for you, if you have this place where you yo-yo in your weight, consider that your weight is the weight that you are, and the weight that you have allowed yourself subconsciously and unconsciously to be has been a result of how safe you feel at that weight. When I was in the past, when I would get thinner, like between 125 and 135, I got a lot of attention. I got a lot of male attention. And for me, it was a little too much for my nervous system, because if I got too much attention, it would trigger those things of when I was almost kidnapped. when I was sexually assaulted. And so it would strike up this fear in my body. And so my body was like, nope, you are not going to be that thin. So not only was I fearful of losing some of my family's love and having them judge me and talk about me. And again, I'm not saying that these things would actually happen. What I am saying is that the perception of what I experienced and what I felt when I was young led me to believe that these things would happen. And so my subconscious and my unconscious played along by keeping my weight in those areas. As soon as I would reach, for me, historically, it was weight 142. As soon as I would reach 102, there was this bottom threshold, then I'd start gaining weight. And when I'd reach 165, I'd stop losing weight. So there was this safety zone. But yet, remember, my body is actually happiest around the 119 to 123 rate, which is 20 pounds lower than what I historically felt safe at. And so it doesn't matter what the numbers are, it's just that everything in your life has a safety zone. And if you're not experiencing life that feels free, that feels really good to you, consider that you're in the safety zone and not the you zone, not the be the wolf zone. Being the wolf is where you're living above the safety zone. Being the wolf is where you're living in the life that you are made for. And so for me, with my weight in my body, the life I was made for was around 119 pounds. It's not this 142 to 165 range. But historically, I lived there because that's what my unconscious felt was safe. And the number one priority of the body and the unconscious and the subconscious is always safety, right? Safety first. So you will not be able to get the life that is above safety until your subconscious and unconscious feel safe. You may have noticed that perhaps in career or financially, you get to a certain point and then it just falls apart. That you get to this threshold and you can never quite get there. And maybe you have a certain bottom point when it gets bad enough that it strikes you into action and you'll like scramble and get it together and you raise until you get this point. Maybe you'll go a little bit higher than the last time, but then it all crumbles again. And so again, it's this yo-yo thing that begins to happen. Now, if you're experiencing yo-yos in your finances, in your business, in your relationships, it's very certain. I can say it's certain there is some subconscious and probably even deeper unconscious patterning of self-sabotage because your system is trying to keep you safe, and safety is going to trump all your wants, your desires, and your dreams, right? So for instance, for me, when I was a photographer and a bartender. Bartending was safe for me in many ways. It was safe because my mom had done it and I wouldn't be outshining her and creating a bigger and better life than her. For me, when I was growing up, the things that I did to accomplish were ridiculed, put down, or I was just not allowed, or I didn't get any acknowledgement for them at all. And so I would still accomplish to a degree, but there was this point, if I accomplished more than my mother, then there would be backlash. So it was always to a certain point. And then not really that big of a deal when you're young. It's okay, get good grades, go to college. My mom didn't get good grades in school, but she was really smart. But I didn't get to go to the gifted program. I wanted to go to the gifted program. I wasn't allowed to skip grades. I wanted to skip grades. I wanted those things. My soul wanted those things. Now, I probably told you that I didn't want those things because if I did, there was this backlash that I felt was coming. And again, my perception, I'm not saying that was the truth. It was my perception of how it was going to go. And one of the things And this is a really important thing about safety, right? I talked about the feeling of lack. We are hardwired to notice the feeling of lack. And when we take action, like I would ask my mom, say, I'm hungry, hopefully our action results in the solving of that lack. Now, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes when you experience lack and you try to solve it, you encounter somebody else that feels lack. And sometimes their feeling of lack is in response to you trying to take care of your own life and handle your life. So, one thing, when you feel judgment, when you feel like people are angry with you or mad at you or upset, or they don't like it when you do something, typically your action has triggered them to feel lack. Now, notice I did not say that your action made them feel lack, because your action did not make them feel lack. They had a feeling of lack that's unresolved within themselves that has been pushed and highlighted because of the way you are choosing to show up. So, for instance, now I don't know if this is the truth, but I'm going to make up a story to demonstrate a possibility. So when I would ask my mom and say that I was hungry, and she would say, no, you're not, it's a figment of your imagination. Now, her response could have been a reaction to a lack that she was feeling. Maybe she felt like she had a lack of resources to actually feed me. Maybe there was no food. Maybe she felt like she didn't have enough time. That is a big one where we feel lack. There's not enough time. There's not enough time. How am I going to get all this shit done? Because there's not enough time, right? It's kicks in your survival mode. So perhaps my mom gaslit me about not being hungry because she was feeling a sense of lack. And so that was her response to lack. Whereas my original response was to take a direct path. And then I started doing things that were different. So to get my needs met, I would steal, like I said, I would steal candy and food from the grocery store. I would eat the paper bag that my lunch came in. I would find these alternative ways around the direct path, which is a huge in the long run in your life, especially when you're an adult. You want to take the most direct path to getting what you want and to getting what you need. But if you've learned it wasn't safe to do that, to ask for what you need, to go after what you wanted directly because it would get taken away or something like that, you would learn that the part of you that takes the direct path, that takes care of yourself, is bad, and you would potentially shove it down and not use it. And then by not using that part of you, you are subconsciously sabotaging yourself because your unconscious is trying to keep you safe. But ultimately, when you're trying to make a life of your dreams, you've got to go beyond safe. And so you've got to break all those safety mechanisms that have been unconsciously and subconsciously programmed into your nervous system, into your mind, into your body. You ever try to maybe go talk to somebody that you know has the key to the thing that you want, and you feel nervous and you feel like you can't go, then you go up there and you just stutter and you can't ask questions and you're just like blah, 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 blah. Put your foot in your mouth? It's because your body, your nervous system believes that what you're doing is unsafe, because historically it came with consequences that were not good. Might have been your consequences that you experienced in your life, also could be consequences that your previous ancestors that experienced in their life. So there was no demonstration of that kind of behavior. Is this making sense to you all? Are you beginning to understand that most self-sabotage is driven by lack? So Now, here's the kicker. You can do all of these things with overcoming the lack and feeling full, feeling whole, feeling all of the feelings within you so that you feel great and you're not feeling any lack. I feel worthy. I feel whole. I feel capable. I feel all of the things. I don't feel any lack. But can you hold that feeling in the face of other people feeling lack? Could you literally feel like you had all the money in the world and you are whole and capable and deserving and stand in a room with a bunch of homeless people and be able to hold that feeling of wholeness? Could you be able to hold that without feeling any negative emotions, without feeling guilty, without feeling shame because you have more than they do? Without feeling sad for them? Could you hold your feeling of wholeness and positivity and joy and light in the face of a whole bunch of other people feeling lack and maybe even condemning you for feeling joyful and whole and full and happy? Could you do that? That is the other thing, because if other people's lack makes you feel lack, if you're surrounded by other people feeling lack and that makes you feel lack, and now here's the key. I said makes you feel lack, but it doesn't make you feel lack. All it's doing is highlighting a feeling that's actually already inside of you that's unresolved, unprocessed, that is living within you. And then when you see other people in lack, it triggers it. And so this feeling, this emotion of lack, you got to obviously work on feeling and healing your own lack. And the big part of that is so that you can stand in the face of other people feeling lack and be able to hold your wholeness. So, for instance, the part of me that took care of my needs, which asked if I was asked for food because I was hungry, and then would steal food because I was hungry. Then I got shamed and ridiculed and in trouble for stealing. So then I had to push that part of me down even deeper, even further. The part of me that takes it upon herself to take care of her needs. So over time, I began to rely on other people for my needs. So then my method was to manipulate and connive to convince people that it was their idea to take care of my needs. So I would figure out ways to make people, and again, this was subconscious. This probably wasn't unconscious, but this was subconscious. I was not aware that I had gotten to the point where every action in my life was about making sure that my needs were met at some point, whether now or banking, keeping score for the future. Make sure that they like me. As long as they like me, then if I really need something in the future, maybe then they'll show up. But it's a whole lot of relying on maybes when all I needed to do was just reanimate the part of me that took care of my own needs. But that part of me I had buried because I was trying to stay safe, because I got in trouble for stealing, because I got gaslit when I asked for what I needed. And so everything in my system was out of balance and out of whack. I couldn't take direct paths towards the things that I wanted. So subconsciously, I had all these hoops, and unconsciously, all these hoops that I had to jump through because of a feeling of not feeling safe, of feeling lack. And so anytime that I had a feeling of lack, like maybe I'd look at somebody and be like, "Oh, I'm not pretty enough." It's a feeling of lack, and thinking that my prettiness was a key to safety and to survival. That, oh, I'm not capable enough. I got to figure this out on my own before I let anybody see me, because I can't let anybody see me make a mistake. Because if I make a mistake, that compromises my safety, because historically it did. If I did it wrong. But this is the most important part. And suck, this is a doozy. If you were a person who grew up feeling unsafe, who grew up in an environment that was pretty controlling, if your parents were super strict, super helicoptery, or super controlling, always worried about what you were doing, wanted you to do it the right way, if you felt like you were not allowed to be you and not allowed to be free and in the full expression of you, if you felt like you were doing it wrong, no matter what you did, this is going to be really important. If you take nothing away from this podcast, this show today, this is the thing I want you to take away from. If you've done that, what you have learned to do is dopamine chase. And a lot of people who have ADHD out there understand this very clearly. And dopamine chasing is when you're doing things so that you get a dopamine hit. And a dopamine hit feels really good. Dopamine is actually, we are hardwired to notice lack because it is the safety mechanism. If we have a lack of food, it will motivate us to go out and find food. If we have a lack of safety, it will motivate us to take action to provide for our safety. So the things that we need to survive, we get a feeling of lack about, and we get a feeling of dopamine when we solve that problem. So if we are hungry and we eat food, we get a dopamine hit. So it temporarily takes away the pain of lack. And notice I said temporarily, because we all know a dopamine hit is fast. It's like a little pop of a drug that has a short lifespan. And so if you grow up feeling unsafe or in a controlling environment or a helicopter parent environment, or being told a million things that you're not allowed to do and feeling like you're not allowed to be who you are, you learn to chase the dopamine hits, not consciously, but there was always a feeling of lack. If you were told you did it wrong and your parent was like, no, that's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, subconsciously, you fear for your safety. So you feel you have a lack of safety. And then so you bend and contort who you are and what you're doing in order to make them happy. And when they stop feeling the lack that they're feeling by looking at you, because your bigness, your boldness has triggered them into feeling the lack that's unresolved within them. Again, you didn't make them feel that. That feeling was already unresolved inside of them. But once that happens, and then they start to control you because they don't want to look at the behavior that they have stuffed down and they have disowned within themselves, that makes them feel the lack of who they are, then they squash you. It feels like they squash you, but you are the one who chooses to shrink or not to shrink at that point. You choose to let yourself feel the lack because you cannot hold your own in the face of them feeling lack. And so what you do instead, you shrink, you bend yourself. This is what I did, and a lot of my clients do. I bend, I shrink until I get that dopamine hit. Because when I get that dopamine hit, their feeling of lack has calmed down. And I get the dopamine hit that tells my brain, you did it right. You are safe for now. And so, because my childhood felt like I was in perpetual fight and flight and looking for safety, I was looking for the dopamine hit to tell me that I did it right. And so, my entire fucking life, I spent chasing the dopamine hit and feeling like, oh, I'm doing all the things right in school. I knew exactly. I would read the teacher, I would give them what they want, I would get straight A's. When I got to college, it was totally different thing. I couldn't do it in classrooms of 300 people, but I could do it in a classroom of 30. and I could read the teacher, give them what they want. They would feel good. And if they felt good, I would get the dopamine hit and my brain would know that I was safe. So that was how I lived my life, looking for the dopamine hit to let me know that I was safe. Do it right, do it the way they want, get the dopamine hit, know that you're safe. But here's the fucking thing: the life that you were made for, the life that is right for you, is not going to feel like a dopamine hit. In fact, it's going to feel the opposite. It's going to feel flat. When you get acknowledgement for doing something that is right for you, you will not get a dopamine hit. It will feel flat. It will feel like nothing, which leaves your little survival brain, my little survival brain anyway, confused as fuck. Oh, fuck. I didn't feel anything from when they told me I did a good job. And because I didn't feel anything when they told me a good job, I must be doing it wrong. And then you sabotage the thing that's right for you. So this is the thing that you must take away when you do things right for you. It will feel good in the moment when you're doing it. It's not going to feel like a dopamine hit. It's not going to feel like that little pop of zing. It's going to feel even and nice and steady and lovely. And when people acknowledge you for it later, it's going to feel like nothing, because you want the dopamine to fill up the lack. But when you did it from wholeness, from the truth of who you are, when you did it something that is made for you, that is right for you, you don't need to fill up with dopamine because you're already full. And it's the exact reason why that acknowledgement doesn't actually feel like anything. So if you want to stop sabotaging yourself, subconsciously, unconsciously, begin to chase the things that once you do them, acknowledgement has you feeling nothing. It will feel good in the moment. And the other thing to be wary of, if you have been a dopamine chaser, when this happens, when you do something that is right for you and somebody acknowledges you and you don't feel anything, your brain, your survival brain, my survival brain does this, my clients' survival brains do this, will start to freak out and think that you did it wrong. And here's where the big sabotage comes. Oh shit, I didn't get the dopamine hit. And this is, again, subconscious. You're not conscious aware of this, but now you can be. I didn't get the dopamine hit. That must mean I did it wrong. And you will start to backtrack and figure out, I should have said this. Maybe I needed to do this. Da, 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 da. So when acknowledgement feels like nothing, it's a sign you're on the right track. But be wary for your brain to start the monologue of how you must have done it wrong because you didn't get the dopamine hit that lets you know that you're safe. You are already safe. If you're listening to this podcast, if you have the time to listen to this podcast, you are probably living a life that is technically already safe, unless you're in an abusive relationship, but you also still have the opportunity to leave. And really quick disclaimer, I know it's not that easy because of all this unconscious and subconscious hooks that are in here. I've been there and I understand. So no, but do know that it is 100% possible. So even if you feel completely trapped in whatever situation you are in, that a big part of that feeling trapped is this subconscious and unconscious sabotage that's happening within you. And it is possible to break through to the other side. So again, doing what is right for you is not going to give you the dopamine hit. It'll feel nice, but it's not going to give you that crazy high that the dopamine does. But over time, it will create a bigger and better life that feels more and more expansive and more true. But if you're chasing subconsciously or unconsciously the dopamine hit to let you know that you're safe because you're nervous system, your body, your brain historically has not felt safe, you are going to continue to sabotage. So, on the other side of all of that, what begins to happen is once you start chasing the not dopamine and you start actually doing the things that are right for you, your regular waking state becomes blissful. It becomes easy. And you start making decisions that create the life that you really want, the life that feels good internally for you. Not your life might still look really great on paper, but I'll use the weight example. And I use that one because it's so simple and logical for people to understand. So my body feels really good where it's at now. Sure, I could be a little more toned, and there's ways that I can make my body feel even better. And I'm moving on that direction because my motivation is about making my body feel the best that it can for me. So my body feels good at this weight. It feels so much better than it did in that other range that I used to live in, the safety range. But now, because of the work that I've done, my body feels good at the true and made for me range of my body. And I feel safe here because I have unwound and cleared that unconscious programming that made it before for me to feel unsafe. So it means that I can get attention from other people. I can stand in other people's feelings of lack and not shrink and not be like, oh my God, I need to eat and gain weight. And again, unconscious, not conscious at all. So if you've been struggling with a health goal, you probably got this kind of stuff going on. Financially, the same. Business, the same. When you start running your business in a way that is right for you, it feels good to do the things that you need to run your business. It just does. And yeah, sure, you still want to delegate things out, but you're not delegating from a place of lack. You're delegating from a place of full. And when you're delegating from a place of full, you're not looking for somebody to take away your feeling of lack and give you a dopamine hit to make you know that you're safe. Like, how many people have you hired where you hired them and they didn't do it the right way? And in fact, they had the same problems that you have doing the thing because you were hiring from a feeling of lack. You were feeling that lack. So you were looking for the dopamine hit to pop and let you know that you were safe. But the dopamine hit is only safety for right now. It is not safety for long term. So when you're feeling a feeling of lack, you're going to attract people who have a similar feeling of lack. So you will tend to attract and hire people who have the same problems and issues that you do. They might do it a different strategy, but the seed of the issue is still the same. So the outcome ends up being the same. So I'll talk more about the feelings of lack and all of this, but I hope this gives you a good overview for beginning to understand what is driving self sabotage in your life, whether it's conscious or unconscious. Again, some of the things we can see and we're like, oh, fuck, I've messed that up. Oh, I missed that opportunity. Oh, I should have, could have, would have done this thing, but understand that there is stuff that's even way beyond your awareness that is happening at such a deep level. And I didn't talk too much about this, but the deepest unconscious patterning that was programmed in from generations before and before you could even talk, stuff that your system doesn't even understand could be different, and that's the big limitation. So I'll talk about that coming in the future. In the meantime, I hope you have a greater understanding of the feeling of lack and why feeling whole is so important to actually creating the life that feels as good as it looks. All right. Thank you all for listening. And remember, the more that you live the life that you are truly made for, the more that you be the wolf, humanity will evolve. I'll see you all next time.